Unique New York.
You vocally ready?
Yes.
All right.
Exarkin.
Exarkin.
All right, here we are. We're live.
All right.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions, featuring the only two Star Wars podcast hosts that were available on such short notice. I'm one of your hosts for the week, Corey, and joining me, as always, is my efficient co-host, Mr. EckhartsLadder. How are you doing, Justin?
Good. It's a real shame they couldn't get the guy who made all those mean videos about J.J. Abrams in 2015 to host this one. I know
Which one? You'll have to be more specific.
I think his name was Jar Jar Abrams, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Remember him? That was like before the Star Wars hate thing was cool. So he was like a kind of a trendsetter.
Wow.
Yep. Yep.
A real pioneer of the movie.
Yeah, they couldn't get him, so here we are.
All right, well, sad as you all may be to have to deal with us, we are here to talk about Young Jedi Knights Book 12. We are 12 books into this series. That's almost half a year that we've spent talking about Young Jedi Knights. And this time, we're returning to Ord Mantell, and I know what you're thinking. Have they been to Ord Mantell? And the answer for almost all of the characters in this book is no.
Besides for Han.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking Ord Mantell was where they'd went. I was thinking Mechas. That was Ord Mantell. I was like, oh yeah, they went there, but no, yeah, that was Mechas. So they've never been there. Han Solo went to Ord Mantell. I assume his occasion there is the one he mentions in episode 5, right?
Yeah, he ran into that bounty hunter on Ord Mantell that changed his mind. And I think there's 5 or 6 candidates that he lists in this book for which one that could have been. Well, it's probably the insectoid one, because the other guy, Setharos, that we meet in this book as well, is he was a smuggler. So
yes,
there's
and
one,
of course, because because Ord Mantell is mentioned as having bounty hunters, that means that it is now a bounty hunter planet.
Well, yeah, there's the bounty hunter world, there's the blue people world, there's the ice world, there's the accountant world on Munilinst. Like, what did Munilinst do before they met the rest of the galaxy? Like, were they just all sitting around like, oh, someday we'll have some books to keep? Then they met the Republic's like, oh, thank God, we can look after the finances for other people.
Well, I guess they were just doing their own books. They were cooking their books so well that was a sustainable industry, which is impressive. Yeah.
Yep. Well, the galaxy could learn some stuff.
Right. So probably a shorter episode today. As mentioned, we're talking book 12, Return to Ord Mantell. Before we get into it, Corey, is there any Star Wars news or anything you'd like to talk about?
I don't think so, unless there's anything that's been eating away at you the last few days. Really.
No, I did manage to buy an Xbox Series X today, which I had been waiting for a while. The Halo bundle, and it's not actually a crazy price. And I was looking up the stats on the Series X, and it's pretty much better than my computer, which surprised me. They've got a lot of good hardware in there. It's like the graphics card is like comparable to a 3600, or not a 3600, what's the new Nvidia series? The lowest one of those, 3060. Yeah, 3060. So yeah, I bought that, but I don't get it until December. So
much like Halo itself.
Yeah, the same day. Yeah, so I got the Halo package, which it was crazy online. They were gone within like literally 5 seconds. So
did you have to go into the store to pre-order it?
I did. Yeah, I had to put a $50. Oh, I put a $300 down payment on it. I could have paid for the whole thing.
Out for it.
No, I could have paid for the whole thing. They require $50, and I was like, "How much can I tap?" Because I was holding Imogen. It's like, "What's the tap limit on this machine?" They're like $300. I'm like, "Okay, I'll pay that then."
What is the actual Halo-ness of the Xbox come from? Is it
it's just like
Master Chief faceplate?
Yeah, it's just a faceplate. Sometimes they have like custom sounds. I don't know, and it comes with the game. It's kind of greasy though because they make you purchase apparently this is a Microsoft thing. If you buy the bundle, you have to also purchase something else. So it's like you can either buy a second controller or you can buy there's like an accessory pack you can buy. So I thought that was kind of weird, but
Does
I don't
it at
mind
least
buying a
come with
second
like a
controller.
discount or something?
No, no, it doesn't at all. It's because there's like no stock right now. Like you can't even buy a standard Xbox Series X right now. Like they're selling for like $1,000 still. It's
Jesus.
crazy.
How long ago did they come out? Like it's been a while. Like
Yeah, they came out like
PS5s, Series X's,
yeah,
they're all just
they've been out
gone.
for like a year and there's still no stock. Like
The only thing
there's
you
no
can really
stock.
get is one of these guys.
Hmm.
Nice Nintendo Switch, which is all you need. Because you know what PS5 and Xbox don't have is Pokemon Unite.
True.
So
That's true. But I mean, even with that, like Switches had their hardware issue or
yeah,
but they didn't have a pandemic. It's just Nintendo
yeah,
does that on purpose.
into the Nintendo Vault.
Hmm.
All right. Well,
Exactly.
uh, what did you think? What were your thoughts on the book as we get into the final review here?
I actually really like this one. It's very different than the others. It's like the kids go into a war zone. A lot of people are brutally killed. There's a young woman with a spice addiction. There's people mangled and crippled by war.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
get a
it was
nice mangled body of a 19-year-old,
yeah.
which is a choice that Young Jedi Knights has not made so far. What's his name?
Han Solo's
Petras.
strafing creatures with like his high-powered laser cannons.
So,
Yeah,
what year is this book set in? It's like 23 ABY, I think. They're
yeah,
16, so they were 8. So it's got to be 24 ABY. So that was it was a little bit weird because with Anya Galandro, who's a
hmm
callback to a former character from a book we've covered already, it was that wasn't Star's End. That was
it was
Han
Han Solo's
Solo.
revenge.
Yeah, and so Galandro, this smuggler that Han had worked with at the time, he died in that book, and his daughter shows up here looking to get revenge on Han. She's working for the Black Sun, not realizing that they're fueling this war on her home planet. So she finds Han and the kids when they're headed to Ord Mantell for the yearly blockade runner derby, which
Hmm.
it seemed like these were all much smaller. I was just hoping for a bunch of CR90s, but I got disappointed by that.
Yeah, considering that the Dragon's Tooth is that's the name of it, right? Dragon's Tooth
Dragon,
or
Rock Dragon.
Rock Dragon? Yeah, the Rock Dragon wins. So smaller ships for sure.
Yeah. But they talk about the Millennium Falcon like it's this huge ship in these books, so
Hmm. I mean,
their
I
sense
could
of
see some of
scale.
that. But yeah, so yeah, they start off there. We get a nice Morth Duel reference early on. I was like, it's been a while since I've thought about him.
Another Rybit.
Yeah.
Well, Kip
One
shows up
point.
in this book pretty early on.
Yeah.
Kip and Streen show up all raggedly, haggardly at the Jedi Academy, and it
Yep.
seems like Luke is really running this academy with an iron grip that NJO kind of puts to the side because like he's telling everyone exactly what to do all the time. And
Hmm.
in NJO, it's more like, oh, everyone's off doing their own missions, fighting each other, and Kip is upset at Luke for being too lax with how the Jedi are meant to interact with the New Republic. So
Yeah. Yeah. Luke. I mean, there's a bunch of inconsistencies here. For one, they talk about how long it's been since the Falcon's been repaired. We're right now reading the Black Fleet Crisis, and the Falcon's just been completely stripped down to its bones and refit.
a couple of years
Um,
before, yeah,
yeah, we have Zek fighting a Drengir at the beginning of the book too, which was funny. Like a
they should
or
thank Silas.
yeah, um, or not a Dren. Yeah, that's what they're called, right? Drengir from High Republic.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Um, my second note I have here is fuck Uncle Owen, lol pussy. Just like
Luke just
so,
shits on Owen at the start of
yeah.
this book.
Uncle Owen's been dead for
20
2 decades
years,
at this
yeah.
point, and Luke's talking to his students, and he's like, "I was raised with this guy named Uncle Owen, and he tried his best, but fuck was he lame. And if it had been his way, the galaxy would still be under the boot heel of the Empire right now, basically." Just the lesson there is like do things that make you uncomfortable, I guess, but like I don't know.
You
I'm
can't
going with
always protect people, and that's not always what's best for the galaxy and for them. But fuck Uncle Owen in particular.
yeah. Yeah. It is kind of funny too because we do get like Han being Team America World Police here and like
Yeah.
pulling people over, forcibly searching their vehicles, trying to end a civil war by himself. So I thought that was a kind of funny little contrast.
Who would have thought that all it took to end a civil war was someone coming to the civil war and be like, "Hey,
Have you guys tried
stop it."
talking? Just talk with each other. It's easy.
Apparently,
Yeah.
this is the first time, though, in the entire war that someone had been accidentally killed by one of their own traps, and that
Mm-hmm.
really put everything in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So, in this 30-year civil war on the planet Anubis, it
Mm-hmm.
just, no matter the fact that they were like littering the entire planet with all these booby
Dirty minds
traps,
and shit.
yeah,
Like,
that no one important had died yet, and then when someone important dies, like, okay, hold on, everyone, this is
mhm.
getting a little silly.
Yeah, killed as well. Like this is a dark story, as you were saying, by a spice addled. Is she a teenager? I
She so
actually no, she would be
Galandro
a little bit
died.
older.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
like
what I was getting.
25 years
Yeah,
ago. Yeah.
her dad died 24 years before this book,
Mm-hmm.
or 23 years. So she's
Um.
probably 24, and it
Mhm.
talks about how she'd like left and joined a smuggler ring as if
Yeah.
this would happened in like years past. But the guy who blows himself up is 19, and it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, we would have gone on to be married." It's like, how old were you when you left?
Well,
Seems
she's
like
also
a
kind of got
strange age
some
difference.
chemistry with Jason too.
Yeah, Jason and Tenel Ka have an Anya coming between them, and Jaina and
Mm.
Zek have an Anya coming between them.
Yeah.
Jason even snaps at Tenel Ka a little bit later on. Like, you can't
Yeah.
judge her.
Yep.
I love her
Yeah,
more than you.
he's like I don't know why, but something I really liked her, and it's like the book's always describing her as like moving all smoothly and feline
Mm,
like, and I'm like I think I know why you're protective of her, Jason.
yeah.
What was so you, before we you said there's a thing that you hoped I didn't catch
So you
at the
didn't
end.
catch it? All right, did
No,
you
I
listen to
didn't.
the audiobooks or did you
No,
read
I
the
read this one.
All
I
right.
read this one.
So, uh let's see if I can pull that up. It is one of
I
my
did see
notes, but
there was a part where at first I thought you were mentioning there it's talking about at the very beginning when Zek is fighting the Drengir like thing,
no.
and it's like there was like things going near his arms, and the way it was written, it looked like anus, like because it was like you know how it. For those who don't know, we're reading basically transcribed versions because these books have never had digital releases in official audiobook or an official text. So it seems like the way this was made is somebody scanned the book and basically transcribed it automatically. So like certain letters or words don't work well. Like if you've got a bunch of N's or M's or R's that all kind of look the same, it gets confused. So it
So
turned arm to like ANNS. And I was like, I thought it said anus at first. And I was like,
it
huh.
it actually does that later on in the book.
Oh, okay.
So this is 89% in. Ellis looked at him, and the expression on his face rippled with pure rage. They're playing both sides for fools, supplying all of us while we continue to fight and harm each other over each other all for nothing. I
Wait, can
wouldn't be,
you? Okay, continue.
I
Sorry.
wouldn't be so sure. Zach crossed his anus over his chest.
So it's the exact same thing that I thought, but it was a different
Yes,
place. That's
but it
hilarious.
actually does say anus.
That's great.
Specifically, crossed his anus over his chest.
So you went inside out, basically.
And I
Huh.
don't know why I find this so funny, but I do.
I think I saw that on Something Awful back in the day. Crossed his anus. Okay,
But yeah,
that's
so at the start of the book, they're hearing about how Kip and Streen come in, and it seems like we're gonna get the plot being about whatever they were doing and whatever they were coming to talk to Luke about. But
yeah,
instead,
the Leviathan they fight, right?
yeah. But then when they find out it's Kip that's one of these Jedi that came there, Jason and Jane are like, "Oh, well, someone should call Dad,
Mhm.
because Dad and Kip they go way back."
Maybe maybe his children aren't enough to get him out here. Maybe his buddy will be.
Yeah, and it's like when they go to call him, it's like it turned out Han was already en route to Yavin 4 to visit his children. And they even make a comment later, like, "We're your kids, Dad." So like, they're Han was already just coming to see Kip. He doesn't like his kids. He likes Anakin and Jaina. He doesn't like Jason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's I think that's correct. And it's kind of funny too because I was also thinking this is the second time where the author just hasn't wanted to write Chewbacca, so they just give it a Chewie's on a family vacation.
Yeah, which he just
um,
recently did in Black Fleet Crisis too. So maybe Chewie spends more time with his family than we give him credit for.
to be fair, that was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, it was 17 ABY, I think, 16,
Mm-hmm.
17 for Black Fleet
Yeah,
Crisis.
yeah,
Whereas this is again 24.
yep,
But
yeah. So I don't know. What's he complaining about? Like, my indentured slaves don't get to see their family for years at a time. So
I thought he has dinner with his family every Sunday.
Charlie,
Yeah.
no, he gets to video chat with them. He
Okay.
he like will eat cereal, and I don't let
That's
him leave
healthier
the
than I think
office.
anything he eats actually is.
Well, he doesn't use milk though. He uses Pepsi, and
That's
like not
true.
even Diet Pepsi.
That's true.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Hmm.
But yeah, so they Han has been invited to be the grand marshal of a derby race on Ord Mantell, which back in the day, Han's won this derby 3 times, but they want him to be the pace car for this one, and they meet this old smuggler who Han been in some scrape ups with, thinking that he'd have a grudge. He's like, oh no, that's way in the past. But then he's trying to blow up Han. Can you believe this? Someone is trying to kill Han Solo, Justin.
I've never heard that plot line before, especially where Han is basically serving as the Nugtosh for this race.
What was weird to me is like Han has this history on Ord Mantell of finding every bounty hunter that lives there because they all live there.
Mhm.
And when they get to the planet and he's called in to do his ceremonial roles and meets Setharos, I think his
Mhm.
name is, it's like, oh, if Han had been wearing his blaster, this would have been a shootout because so it's a good thing he'd stopped doing that. Like, what? Your family's always getting attacked. You're always getting attacked. When would Han Solo not carry a blaster?
Yeah, it's like there are times where like he'll go into a diplomatic meeting, with Leia, and like he'll take it off on purpose. Like you know, he'll he'll put it away somewhere. So,
Yeah.
yeah, him going to Ord Mantell, I find it hard to believe he wouldn't be wearing his blaster.
Yeah. How did you feel about at the start when they separated the group when like it looked like Tanel Ka and Loey might be written out of the book? I
Yeah,
was
that was
upset.
weird. I was like, just invite them. Like, I know the Falcon's not super comfortable, but you can at least fit them in there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. How do you feel about Han's Han's legend has increased substantially from just being a random dude in a Mos Eisley cantina with who happened to have a ship to now he's the greatest pilot of Ord Mantell's ever seen. In other books, he's the greatest sharpshooter ever. He knows every single smuggler ever in the galaxy.
Yeah, that I don't know.
I don't hate it.
It's
It's
fine.
just kind of funny. It's just how Star Wars is.
Him being the greatest pilot, I think I like more than him being like the best shot in the West and the fastest shot in the West and the wettest shot in the West or whatever.
Wetish.
I don't know. Don't think about it.
Okay. This
But
did kind of make me miss the classic Han Solo trilogy though. Like,
well, we've still got the Han Solo Adventures to go read, or the other way around. I forget how that works always, but
mhm,
we got 3 more full length Han Solo books to read.
mhm. Yeah,
Not as
no, that makes
good,
sense.
but
Um, yeah, I mean they won't have the late '70s charm, but that's okay.
we get to see more of Raynar's parents in them. So
So the basic plot, I think we covered most of it. They start off, they meet this character who is the child of someone that we meet way back in the third Han Solo. I believe it's the third Han Solo book, right? Um, and
no,
he
I think the third
died.
one's Stars End, isn't it?
Oh, is it Stars End? Oh, yeah, you're right. It is.
Because
Uh,
I I for some reason I kept thinking Galandro was the one at Star's End, but that's someone else that was like hired and didn't want to. I might be mixing up
Yeah,
a few of them. It's been so
yeah,
long.
yeah. I didn't really remember Galandro until I kind of wikied him, and then I was like, oh yeah, because I
Because we
remember.
talked about Anya at the time when we were
Yeah,
covering it,
yeah,
but
yeah. So Han didn't really kill Galandro. Anya believes that he did. It was more like he kind of died in conflict with Han. Like he kind of killed himself in a way. He betrayed. I believe what Han's story is pretty much accurate in this.
yeah,
They're together trying to find Zim the Despot's treasure. Galandro betrays the group. He beats Han in a duel but doesn't kill him. He shoots him in the shoulder. Then he runs off into the kind of the treasure room and gets killed by the storehouse's automated defenses.
yeah.
So, I
And the
mean, you could
Professor
see
Worm they were
why.
with is probably dead by now.
Yeah. Also, they were like, I think it's Jason that says, "Oh, so kind of like a hut," and that's Skinks, right? And Han is like, "Yeah, a mini furry hut with legs." So, like in other words, nothing at all like a hut.
Hmm.
Yeah,
They're round,
I suppose. I suppose it's more
but
like I imagine more like a fat ferret. I don't know,
yeah. But
like a
they
bunch of legs. They're like
there's an
Appa, small
ambush
Appa.
that's kind of cute and disgusting, I guess.
Mhm.
But when they're doing the initial run of the race as the pace car, they come into this area of the course that's just filled with bombs. If they'd not been going super fast because Han was risking his kids' lives trying to get higher speed than he did in the previous attempts,
Yeah,
they would have
Han doesn't give a
exploded.
shit. Hmm.
So turns out that's good. And they're all like, oh, well, maybe an ammo dump in the last 30 years of this war happens. Like, no, you can't. Why did they ever consider this a valid
Especially when you
excuse?
when you know that there's a guy who doesn't like Han, who's got a reason to hate Han there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like who's running the race, and you'd think they'd do like at least a preliminary check of the track before the pace car
Hmm.
goes through it. Like, no,
Hmm.
you don't fall for this shit. So they go out and investigate it. Apparently, Anakin is so good at puzzles he can piece together exploded bombs. That's
I
a
mean, we
skill.
he does kind of get Centerpoint Station working. So to be fair,
Yeah, the way they get Centerpoint working after he dies is pretty gross too. You remember the
they make
Anakin
like a
bot?
fake Anakin, yeah,
Yeah,
like a deep fake and or like a deep learning Anakin AI, right?
yeah, a giant weird robot that thinks he's Anakin. Ben has
Hmm.
to like talk into almost killing itself.
Yeah,
But
that's
but yeah,
fun.
so they've got all the little bombs. They bring them back to Ord Mantell to examine them, or onto the Falcon to examine them, or the Rock Dragon, and then they get attacked by these little camouflaged reptile insectoid mercenaries that are
Hmm.
trying to steal the evidence.
I
That's
thought
where
they
we
were
meet
no gray
Anya.
at first. Like just the description, just gray, and like climbing up the
Mm.
walls. I was like, those are no gray, but I don't think
They're
we really ever.
chameleons.
Yeah, is that the name of the species, or is that just what they call them?
That's just what they call them.
Yeah, yeah, and every little bit gets away, of
Yeah.
course. But yeah,
But Anya's
uh,
using a lightsaber in this, and eventually
mhm.
she does go and join the Jedi Academy in some way, but like I'm still not clear if she had any force potential or if she was just fueled by spice.
It seems like she had a little bit, but yeah, she was definitely jacked up. Like I feel like spice in a lightsaber without a little bit of force potential is like
Yeah.
recipe for you're gonna use that one time and then never again.
But it
Especially where
seems like
she's like jittery and like jumping around everywhere.
yeah. It seems like she gets introduced by the authors here as like no, she doesn't have the force, she just has this lightsaber that she's found. And like it looks like an old pirate cutlass, her lightsaber on the front.
Hmm, didn't even see that.
And
I'm
because like
looking
there's
up now.
another image from the Essential Chronology as well, and
Hmm.
it's got like the little hand guard from like a rapier.
Hmm.
But I don't
Yeah,
think she
that's
ever comes up again, and she does go and learn from Luke a bit.
hmm. What's her last appearance?
It's just in the Under Black Sun trilogy.
Oh, hmm, okay.
Like she
Kind of
comes
weird.
in and like the Encyclopedia, Essential Chronology, Guide to the Star Wars Universe, Guide to Characters, but she's only ever actually appeared in these 3 books that we're going to be reading here.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I mean, I don't think everyone needs to, get all the get like Lusa is one. Like I like if every character's a Lusa, I think that's a bit too much, but I like how
Mm-hmm.
she is a character who's kind of, brought through. But I mean, it is kind of strange that she never got brought up early or later, but
Yeah, at least list her in the casualties of the Vong War when.
oh, she was on the surface of Vithor for some reason. Well, no one
Yeah,
should
she
be
was
there, but
killed with Lusa fighting off
yeah.
spice bandits when she was trying to get her fix.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff.
But
So after they get to, so basically Lusa's kind of brings forward to Han, plants this idea that, well, her life's been so shitty because her dad dies, and then she's also on this planet which is undergoing a civil war. She's got this big plan to kind of kill Han. She's working, of course, with Han's rival, who we meet earlier on in the book, and of course they end up, you know, falling right into it and going to the planet of the civil war is going on in, and that's where people get their limbs blown off. They step on landmines. Someone runs through razor wire, which is pretty gruesome.
yeah, they have a bunch of fucked up stuff. Like so there's the farming village and the mining village, and they've been at war for 30 years. It started off as like the farmers were supporting the rebellion, whereas the miners were supporting the empire because they wanted their ores to be bought up more securely. And then it just turned into like we're still fighting, so why not? New Republic never really did anything about it. And like the farmers would plant these sonic mines in the mines, sonic detonators in the mines, I guess is more clear. So
Yeah.
whenever people would walk in, they'd explode. And I feel like the farmers would have a bigger advantage in this war on account of how they can feed themselves and the miners
Yeah,
can't.
because and that's true because the original conflict is whether is well they say it's because the farmers wanted to support the alliance, whereas the Imperials, or sorry, the miners, given the fact that they're miners, they have to export material. They wanted to, sort of join the empire so they could sell their wares. So yeah, you think that like one side is self-sustainable, the other's not. But obviously, the miners are doing a little bit of farming, and the farmers probably a little bit of mining as well.
That's not how Star Wars works, Justin. You have a planet, you have a group of people, they do one thing.
Hmm.
They are the
Yeah,
mining planet and the farming planet, and forever they are at war.
yeah, and I got to mention too, like we don't see the whole war here. We're just seeing like two villages, like one on each
Yeah.
side. It seems like that's very small because they talk about how there's like a bunch of other villages, but at the end it seems like the New Republic is here to kind of help work it out. But we'll
Yeah.
see.
I actually don't know that we will see. I think we just have to assume that the New Republic sets it all right.
Hmm.
Why this never got its own standalone novel, I'll never know.
So much potential. I mean, it's kind of like just Shatterpoint.
Yeah. Well,
um,
if you're in the middle of a war and a young man comes over and crosses his anus across his chest, then you're gonna stop fighting too.
you saying if you get goat seed, you're gonna stop fighting? Because that's pretty much what that is. um, if guys, if you don't know what goat seed is and you're squeamish, don't Google it. Don't Google GOATSE. Don't do it. Um, no, for real though, it's very not safe for work. I forget what I was gonna say. I got goatsy on my mind now. It's just staring at me. Um,
I can't
yeah,
hear
it, it,
Goatsy without
it,
thinking of Gautier.
it is kind of like Shatterpoint in that like the war has been going on for so long that the original purpose doesn't even matter anymore.
Hmm.
It's just like they're just fighting because they've all done harm to each other, basically.
Yeah, everyone's got to pay.
Hmm. Basically.
Luckily, the Young Jedi Knights are in town. Uh, the Solo kids are kind of upset at the insinuation that their dad did something that was this gross, as like
Hmm.
kill this guy,
Hmm.
which seems like they'd have to be aware that
He's killed a lot of people.
yeah,
I
some of
mean,
them
more
probably
than
didn't
that,
deserve it as much.
yeah, he was a spice trader, and they've got a new friend right now who's all fucked up on spice.
Yeah,
So like, that's an aspect of Han Solo's past that's brought up sometimes, and a little bit in this book where he's like, "Listen, I did it, but in the end, like, I made my peace and I helped the alliance and stuff." It's like, yeah, but you also, you weren't a great dude. You weren't the worst, but you weren't always the best either.
Like spice in Star Wars always gets handled like a drug addiction with kid gloves, almost like it's the fucking Trix
Mhm.
rabbit. Like,
I'd say this time was one where they actually were a bit more kind of
yeah,
a bit less like that. But yeah, you're right. Sorry, continue.
uh, I was done. You,
Okay.
that was it. That was it.
Yeah, yeah. Like in this, then this she does have like withdrawal and like
Yeah,
you know, but it's still it's still literally kid gloves in this one because it's a young reader novel.
yeah.
Um, but yeah.
But she's gonna find out probably that the Black Sun that she's working for has actually been kind of pushing the
She's
weapons on
gonna.
both sides, which is one of the things that made uh, these two villages open to stop fighting each other, because it gets pointed out that on their way in, the Solos and friends were once again nearly accidentally destroyed by a load of mind, which, like, who's gonna fall for that twice? And the trader is like, "Oh, I'm selling weapons to both sides," and then they go and relay that information to the mining and farming village, and they of course know this specific one trader by name because he's the only one that's supplying both sides in this specific conflict. I guess it's probably some sort of like localized trade deal that he has with each of them, so there's some
Mhm.
exclusivity there. But that's how they
I mean,
finally
you'd
come
think like
around.
the villages are like a few miles apart. You'd think you'd see them dropping it off.
Drops off one, you takes off, you see him go like 5 feet and land.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
Or he's at the mining village. They just look in the back of the truck. He's got all the psionic blasters back there. Like, what are those for?
Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to mention, or should we get to emails? I enjoyed the story. It was good. It was different. I kind of thought at the beginning that it was going to be less about the solo kids, but not really. But I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
good. One of the better ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to seeing what happens next time in Crisis at Crystal Reef or
Yep.
Trouble on Cloud City.
I
No,
think it's Crisis at
Trouble at.
Crystal.
They didn't do the. Yeah, it's Trouble on Cloud City and Crisis at Crystal Reef. That's the order.
Okay. All right. So two stories left. We're getting very close to the end. Um, let's take some time to answer some questions. I could,
Before that, for anyone who tunes out for the emails, next
oh
week we are
yeah,
going to be doing Shield of Lies, I believe, the second book of the Black Fleet Crisis.
it's looking like that. Yeah, I don't think there's anything that would kind of change that. So yeah, Shield of Lies next Thursday.
Right. And now let's look at a couple questions.
Okay, if you do the first one, I will do the second.
Okay, so starting with,
Steven, the first one.
I believe so.
Okay.
So Steven asks, my question for you guys is about the opulence of the High Republic Jedi. When we see Jedi in the OT and prequels, their aesthetic is very understated. Aside from a few exceptions, it's all muted colors and understated robes, contrasting heavily with the intricate pattern robes and lightsaber designs of the High Republic. My theory on this is that we're going to see some kind of great humbling of the Jedi Order, possibly some massive fuck up or fundamental
Hmm.
failing, leading them to return to the roots and cast aside their ostentatiousness. What do you guys think? Is this a way of separating the era we're familiar with, or is there something else to it?
I like that idea. I've never actually thought about that. Because you're right, they do. They're always wearing their prince and princess robes. They're opulent whites. Well, not always, but frequently. And they are kind of a little higher, I think, in galactic consciousness at this point. So yeah, I think some sort of great humbling would be a cool idea. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, there's got to be something that happens that makes them step even further back into like isolating themselves from the galaxy, because like part of what goes wrong with the Jedi and the prequels is that like they are so disconnected from the day-to-day goings on of everyone's lives and just can't relate to
Mhm.
what people in the galaxy are going through, and how they as individuals are kind of like separating themselves from what they need as people. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's meant to be uh such a negative thing in how it's presented in the High Republic right now, because like part of it is supposed to be like, oh, this was the era that they were all so happy and great in, even though there were these other problems going on with what they were doing. But I
Mhm.
think part of it is just to allow them a bit more individuality in the period, and it's hard to do that while still keeping some sort of Jedi robe without it looking a little bit more ostentatious. So we'll see
Yeah.
which direction they end up going with it. But
My theory is that something is going to happen at the end of the High Republic that the galaxy won't realize that the reader will.
mm,
Um, like my theory is that something will happen so that the downfall of the Jedi is assured. Like whether it's something related to the Sith or something else, and they won't. It won't be a big thing in universe, but I do think that the reader will be like, okay, it'll provides more context to the fall.
mhm.
So thank you for that question. Next up, we have Garrett, who says, "Is the Clone Wars 2008 supposed to be part of both the canon and Legends continuity?" The answer to that is yes. Does it make that much sense with the amount of stuff ignored or retconned? Also, yes. It could have been worse if they included the Vong storyline. I don't think. I think the Vong storyline bit is overemphasized. What would have been included in the Clone Wars? I think all we really got is Dave Filoni or somebody made a drawing of a Vong character who could have appeared, but I don't think it really went beyond that. And then he asks, "What is your personal headcanon?" For me, I don't really think about the Clone Wars that much when it comes to Legends. But what about you, Corey?
Yeah, I feel like there are enough inconsistencies with other parts uh of media that covered the Clone Wars, including within the multimedia project. Like sometimes it gets held up as if there were no inconsistency there, and it was this perfect thing. It's like
Mhm.
no, but and it also conflicted with stuff we heard about before. So it's not like the Clone Wars introduced our first inconsistencies in the period, or even the biggest ones. So like the idea that we can take the prequels as being in the same universe as the X-wing books, I don't think it's that big of a jump to be able to uh,
All right.
what's the word to anyways
Yeah, I know what you
to
mean.
include everything together from that. And
Hmm.
Essential Guide to Warfare does a really good job of
Harmonize
taking
it.
the yeah,
Yeah.
Essential Guide to Warfare and some other Legend source books that came out after the Clone Wars cartoon had started. They did a pretty good job making a lot of the broader strokes consistent, which is ultimately the main thing that matters to me, at least. So
Mhm. Yep, I agree.
I don't think it's as big as a deal as it gets made out to be. And I think if we are going to try to separate the Clone Wars from Legends, then there are a lot of other big questions you have to ask about, like why is Corran Horn and his family able to exist in the timeline that has the prequels and
Yeah.
Clone Wars?
Like a lot of it is just like the Clone Wars didn't like the Clone Wars would have been happy to retcon more. It's just like the story they were telling they didn't need to. Like the Clone Wars is something that George Lucas was personally involved with. I don't think for him he would have hesitated to completely change something major if he had needed to.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, next question comes from Justin Taylor, who says, "So a question came to mind given the recent controversy over Slave One. Would it make sense that now, given how Boba is, or at the very least seems to be a changed man, that he might rename his ship? Or do you think that he would continue not really caring about the name of his ship and keep it as is?" I don't really think Boba is a changed man. I just think that the Mandalorian has his allegiance. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest change for me, I think, rather than anything personal.
Yeah, like I don't think the whole name changing thing is actually happening. I don't think there's even a reason to believe it is. Other like there's an internal press release essentially where someone also messed up other names and a Lego set isn't really the name being changed. It's still the same on the
Hmm.
databank. Until that changes, I don't see any reason to believe it is changing.
Hmm.
And I think like the reaction, even if it was changing, has been so overstated. But one thing that I do think has been missed out a bit on the response to it is the idea of like, well, it's a the name of the ship is Slave One. He's a slaver. He's an evil character, so of course it's going to be a bad ship name. But I think that misses a few things. For the one hand, he's bounty hunter and slaver aren't exactly the same, but
Hmm.
the way that Boba is being introduced in things like The Mandalorian and how he's getting his own show, there, I don't think he's ever going to be like portrayed as a fully good guy. But I think in the position of being kind of like the protagonist of a show, that he's not going to be portrayed as being like a super evil guy. He'll at least be portrayed as like, oh, this is a man following his weird Mandalorian code or something. So I do think there will be a consideration of like where the idea that like, oh, it's supposed to be an evil character so we can have a shitty ship name doesn't hold as true as it might have when he was just evil guy hunting Han.
Yeah, I do think there may be something. I don't for one. I don't think Disney is going to change the name. I do think that it will always be the technical name, but I think it's possible they are trying to somewhat distance themselves from it. I went back when I was making my video and I rewatched what's it called? The Mandalorian episodes with descriptive audio on, and every time the ship appears, they say Boba Fett ship. They never once mention it. Basically, how descriptive audio works is like if you were watching this video, it'd be like sitting. Eck walks in and is sitting down, and then it would just cut into me saying it's just so people who have trouble seeing can basically get the full experience. And they don't say his ship name, and they also don't say it when in a behind the scenes feature that I was watching about how it actually works. And there were a few times where I thought people were going out of their way to say Boba Fett ship. So I think it is possible. And this is the thing that's being lost when you have these stupid stories from like IGN who like they take like it you can talk about it, but like to take what they did and say Boba Fett ship officially has a new name.
Yeah.
It's like it's just stupid and you lose like okay, maybe there is actually a discussion to be having. So
Yeah,
yeah.
like I don't think they are changing the name. I do think that they'd probably want to distance themselves from the name, especially if they're putting Boba in a more like not necessarily heroic, but at least prominent position.
Yeah.
And either way, I don't think the response has been proportional at all to even if it had come out like fully confirmed that that is what's happening, which it hasn't, and like it hasn't been anywhere near that, then I don't think, even if that happened, that the response that has happened to the whole ship naming thing has been proportional or acceptable.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much for that question. I think we have Joel next. Um he's got some thoughts. So for one, he says he thinks Jorah Sabayoth should be the role of Jorah Sabayoth should be taken by Supreme Leader Snoke as the Guardian of Wayland in a test for Thrawn. He says he doesn't think the Thrawn trilogy remake has to contradict info setup and Bloodline, which I know I mentioned that in a video. I don't know if we talked about that. Corey basically just the Bloodline kind of establishes that there wasn't a major conflict between um, Endor and the sequel trilogy. I
Mhm.
just don't think though they give one shit about that line.
It at most it'll end up like the whole 1,000 years of peace and stuff between the Clone
Mm-hmm.
Wars and Sith Wars, where like other stuff happened.
Yep. Yep. Um. Yeah, I think that's really all. Thank you very much for your thoughts, and I'm glad we got those thoughts from you, Joel, because I've been saying that you don't just have to send us questions; you get to send us thoughts. And he said specifically his rationale, which I will read. He says, I don't think the Thrawn trilogy remake Mandoverse has to contradict Bloodline as long as it's not a major galactic scale conflict. The New Republic involvement is minimum, and most of it takes place in the Outer Rim away from core and involves scrappy heroes like Din and the rest, which, yeah, I think that's totally fair. Yeah.
Um, Thank you, Joel.
We've
We did
got
get another
Chris
question
next.
before that
Oh,
we missed from Torin,
oh, did I?
who asked, given the last time both of you seem to think Disney is embracing Legends more now, what is the percent chance you give to Disney publishing new Legends books like Sword of the Jedi trilogy or Troy Denning's trilogy post Crucible? Next to zero, honestly.
Yeah, I'd put it at like 5%, maybe. I don't think it's impossible, but I think it's very, very unlikely.
I don't think it's impossible that we'd get another Legends story at some point. Like we got the Marvel 108, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And like I don't think it's impossible that we get that. I think the idea that previously unpublished ones are going to be released, I think it really depends on how far along Sword of the Jedi was, or I
I don't
don't
think
think
Sword of the
it's
Jedi was very far along. I'm not
yeah.
sure, but yeah.
I don't think it's especially likely unless the Essential Legends collection just like flies off the shelves or something.
Hmm.
But
What I do,
Maybe once High
oh, sorry.
Republic's over, they'll be open to something else, but I don't know.
What I do think is possible is that the expandeduniverse.com guys have more unreleased stuff that they're going to eventually release.
Hmm.
I've gotten that impression from them in conversations with them. So I do think there are more legend stories that will come out, but maybe no more besides for the Old Republic and like the occasional source books sometimes are a bit legendsy. Like I think we may not get anything else official, but I think we will still get other stuff that was,
Yeah.
has some air of perhaps for a while being official, even if not ever released or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
All right.
question though. Yeah. Thank you, Torin. Also, I believe you are one of my recent patrons, so thank you for that as well. Um, I think we have Chris next. Do you want to cover his?
So Christopher asks, if you had to choose one franchise to have an official crossover with Star Wars, which would you want and why?
The only way I'd want an official Star Wars crossover is if it was something like a video game, like non-canon,
Yeah.
like a Smash Bros thing. Like I'm not interested in reading a Marvel Star Wars crossover thing, even if it isn't non-canon.
Yeah.
I'm just not interested. But like I'd like to see like a Star Wars character in Smash could be cool.
Yeah.
Like Cal
So
Kestis in Smash, cool.
I've been playing Disney Villainous with Dana, and then we played
hmm
like Marvel Villainous. So if they want to
hmm
just throw out like a Star Wars Villainous, it's actually a fun game. So
Do they have Star Wars characters in the new what's that? What is that a game called again? With the Disney characters, like the
I
Mickey Mouse and like
I'm familiar with Disney characters. Yes.
no, it's like the big game, and they just released the third one a couple of years ago. I thought.
Disney Infinity.
No, it's got
Oh,
like
Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, the guy with the
Yeah,
sword.
I'd
Yeah,
I'd be
Kingdom
up for
Hearts.
that.
Are there Star Wars characters in that yet?
I don't think so.
Okay. But yeah, I know they did Soul Calibur, and I know Halo had Soul Calibur
Yeah.
crossover too. Like that's fun. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Um,
I wouldn't want like a Star Wars story of like Darth Vader and Iron Man teaming up to fight uh Doctor Octopus or something.
okay,
I'd
now
be less interested.
that sounds sick. I changed my mind.
Doctor Octopus would like lose immediately. That wouldn't be
Yeah,
a good story.
yeah.
Robert
Uh,
Downey Jr.'s dead.
Final question from Garrett, who says, my question mainly pertains to Yoda's age and significance as an elder master, and if this is devalued by characters such as Maz being older than Yoda, and she's got this sort of connection to the Force. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's devalued by having like other old characters, even other characters that are like
Yeah.
involved in some way in Force tradition, even if they're not like directly in with the Jedi. Like we even have other stories about like other organizations that work with the Jedi or serve as kind of assistants to the Jedi. Because it's not really putting Maz Kanata as being like more powerful than Yoda. Just like she's also old. She's also wise. She's had some sort of connection with the Jedi, probably passed information along or something, and just knows enough of their traditions. Uh, Kind of the
Yeah, I mean Yoda
same.
dedicated his whole life to it. So,
Yeah. Like I don't think it takes away from Yoda for having like other old or other Force adjacent characters.
no, totally agree. With that, I've got to go take a leak. I think we're done with all the questions. Anything you want to end off with, Corey?
No, I think that's it. Next week,
All right.
Shield of Lies. So if you have any questions for Shield of Lies, send those into tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com. Next week, we'll probably also take a look at some reviews if there's any. If you want to leave a review for the
Yeah.
podcast this week, throw in the term leek.
What is it?
Leek. But make it
Leek.
Leek, like the vegetable.
A little like the far-fetched like this
Yeah.
weapon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So listen
I
to the
love you like a
podcast on
far-fetched loved
wherever.
his leak.
That
Yeah.
sure. All right.
Okay, free one for
Bye
somebody.
everyone.